first, I would like to introduce Dr. Rita Baranwal, the Chief Technology Officer for Westinghouse Electric Company. Rita has an extremely impressive CV spanning 25 years in the nuclear sector. She has had various roles within the US National Lab Network. She served as the Chief Nuclear Officer and Vice President of the Electric Power Research Institute. And before joining EPRI, she was the Assistant Secretary for the Office of Nuclear Energy in the US Department of Energy. Rita, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Helen, for that introduction. And thank you, Ted, for exhibiting a little bit of vulnerability, because I have been accused myself of being a little too vulnerable when I start these talks off, but you've already set the stage, so I have no problem leaping right in. So 2 weeks ago, I had the privilege of being in New York City during the UN General Assembly. I think it was 2 weeks ago, might have been 3 now. And coincident with that was New York City Climate Week. And my favorite building in the world is that UN building that is in New York City. The first time I visited it was when I was 17 years old. I walked inside and was just absolutely awestruck at the power that that building has to convene nations together to agree on paths forward. And that Australia was a founding member is very important, I think very vital today. But the UN has said energy is central to nearly every major challenge and opportunity that the world faces today. And I think this community, and certainly the folks in this room, would agree with that. On Monday, I speak at the Australian Financial Review. I think the sentiment might be a bit mixed in that room, but we'll see how that goes. But what's interesting is that of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, nuclear addresses 10. And that includes greenhouse gas emissions, so there's 2 there, climate action and good health and well-being. That includes the resource intensity that nuclear provides, with life below water and life on land. And let me pause for a moment, and Ted and James and Stephen have heard this before. I have one data point in my life to point to that climate change is real. In 1998, I came to Australia for the first time, and I had the privilege of diving off of an island in the Great Barrier Reef called Lady Elliot Island, and it was beautiful. And my husband and I said, when we have kids, we're gonna make them get certified and dive on this island. And we did that. And we came back in 2019. And my heart broke. Because while it was still remarkable, it was not as vivid and it was not as beautiful as I remembered. And now granted, you could say that I'm getting old and I don't remember things well, but my husband agreed, independently, and he's like, this isn't, it just wasn't as vibrant. You could tell that the coral was bleached, and the waters were warmer. And so that's my data point, and I think that's salient for this, certainly for Australia and for certainly this part of Australia. But that's my one point. Nuclear also addresses energy safety with respect to decent work and economic growth, and we've already heard quite a bit about that this morning, as well as industry, innovation, and infrastructure. It addresses energy efficiency, sustainable cities and communities, and responsible consumption and production. And we have seen in the past year and a half how important nuclear is to energy security. Affordable and clean energy is a right that every single person in this world deserves. Peace, justice, and strong institutions is the last sustainable development goal here. I want to take a moment because Westinghouse had, I say the privilege, but had the privilege to deliver what's called VVER 440 fuel. It's a new design fuel for a Russian-style reactor, but we had the privilege of delivering VVER 440 fuel to Ukraine on September 10th. To the Rivne plant to help Ukraine wean itself off of Russian-supplied fuel. And so when you talk about energy security, and Ted mentioned it as well, this is real. This is not hypothetical. This is not theoretical. This is real. And it has taken the geopolitics over the past year and a half for many nations to realize this. But it's true that nuclear power can provide that energy security and that energy independence. That does not look right. All right. Well, let me just mention it. Imagine that there's a map here. Westinghouse has over 9,000 employees around the world in 90 different facilities and 21 different countries. We are one of the only fuel fabricators in the world, and we have fabrication facilities in 3 countries, in the United States, in the UK, and in Sweden. And very proudly, we are responsible for almost half of the nuclear technology that is operating around the world today. This is kind of a snapshot of the services we provide. It is, almost cradle to grave, if you will. We provide the fuel, we provide the decommissioning services, which also breaks my heart, but that has to happen at some point for these plants. And I'm going to focus on new plants for the rest of my talk here. So Ted and I did not compare notes before we talked, but I want to thank him for teeing this up very nicely. Westinghouse offers a portfolio of reactor solutions for the communities that need it. So let's start with our AP1000 pressurized water reactor. It is successfully operating in China and in the United States. It is breaking operational records, which means that the design is achieving what it set out to do. It is the most advanced nuclear technology that is operating in the world at the moment. Let me jump to the other extreme, our microreactor. It's an eVinci microreactor. It's 5 megawatts electric, and it is designed to provide electricity and ancillary benefits to remote communities, islanded communities, off the grid, on the grid, should they want to be. And I think that's it's a very applicable design to many of the communities here in Australia. The areas that we are talking to in the United States and around the world, frankly, are looking to this type of technology to wean themselves off of diesel. And in some of the conversations I've had this morning, that is an issue here as well, where diesel is very expensive. And so this is a good solution for those communities. We also have interest from defense departments. And I'll get to it in a moment, but we are also working on a concept with NASA to send this to the moon to support lunar missions, so for fission surface power. In between those two is what I am responsible for now, and that's the AP300 small modular reactor. The AP300 is based on the AP1000 technology, but it's a 300 megawatt output reactor. Same design and licensing methodology. It's based on advanced passive safety systems. I'll get more into that in a moment, and some of the facets of it. But it's based on, and this is the important part, it's based on licensed, constructed, and operating technology. And it's the only SMR that can claim that at the moment. And I am going to talk about a non-nuclear product that we have as well, especially since renewables are a pretty hot topic here in Australia. There, I'm sure, is a time when the sun doesn't shine, the wind doesn't blow, and you may want energy storage. And so we do have a pumped thermal energy storage product as well, and that is actually first being deployed in Bulgaria. So our eVinci microreactor, Helen didn't have a chance to mention it because my bio is way too long. My kids say I can't keep a job. But this is my second stint at Westinghouse. The first time when I departed, I actually left as Director of Research and Development. And I had the privilege of having 2 brilliant engineers work for me who were developing this microreactor concept. And they came back to me month after month after month with the iterations. And I said, well, that field won't work, that geometry won't work. And they persisted. How many of you are students or new to the workforce? Raise your hand. Okay, so I'm here to tell you, your bosses will tell you no. Your managers will tell you no. If you have the courage of conviction, please keep trying. Because I kept telling them no, and they had the courage to come back and come back and come back and iterate. And finally, I said, yeah, this might work. Let's go pitch it to the CEO. And we pitched it to the CEO, and he said, this is great. Go work on it for 2 years, and don't talk about it publicly. And now you have eVinci. So I'm grateful to those 2 brilliant engineers, and grateful that the product has come as far as it has. It's a 5 megawatt reactor with 170 degrees C usable heat. It can operate for over 8 years without refueling. And it has minimal site construction time and minimal on-site personnel. We are actually working with the US NRC at the moment to talk about remote operation, and that's, you can imagine for any regulatory body, quite a new concept and a new challenge, but we're trying to work through that in addition to licensing the design itself. It is a heat pipe reactor. And because we are a technology company, we're developing that heat pipe technology. And I believe Ted and James and Stephen had a chance to visit our eVinci test labs and see this firsthand. So you can touch base with them on their opinions on it. The applications for eVinci include, and I think this is pretty salient for Australia, include remote mining operation support, providing industrial process heat, providing district heating. I was just in Finland earlier this week, and district heating is very important there. And so the ability for a reactor to provide district heating to its communities where electricity prices are, at the moment quite high, that's important. Supporting off-grid communities. Not many reactors can do this, and our eVinci concept can. Generating hydrogen, that's a very hot topic as well at the moment. We have interest from universities for this concept to support not only their campuses for their decarbonization targets, but also to serve as a potential tool to teach students on. Strategic military installations. So we have interest from defense departments for using this as a mobile operating reactor to support military installations. Hospitals are very interested in this. IT companies are very interested in this. You know how frustrated we get if our cell phones even glitch for a moment. Those companies need 24/7 reliable power sources. And then finally, research reactors as well have demonstrated some interest here. Before I jump into much more detail on AP300, I wanted to touch on our long-duration energy storage product. It's not, what I would say, extremely sophisticated. It's concrete, water, oil, but it's based on proven commercial refrigeration technology. And so it's a product that we offer as a complement to what we sell in terms of nuclear reactors, but then it's also a standalone product where if a community wants to have energy storage in its ecosystem, this certainly serves that need. So let me touch on AP1000 a little bit. AP1000 is a Gen 3 Plus technology. It has fully passive safety systems and offers over 32 hours of coping power after station blackout in the event of such an event. It has been licensed in the United States, in the UK, and in China. And as I mentioned earlier, it has been setting records in terms of its performance. It's had the shortest refueling outages on record. And the reason that's important is that every day that a plant is down, and obviously not producing power, it costs over $1 million US to that utility. And so if you can minimize the number of days that a plant is down for a refueling outage, it's better for all involved. And I don't even talk about safe because none of us would be in this business if it weren't safe. But it's on this slide because that is one of the benefits of AP1000 is its advanced passive safety features. So what's the Westinghouse Advantage? And I know I've got my fellow colleagues from TerraPower and USNC coming, so I'll let them talk about their advantages. But the Westinghouse Advantage is that we've been in business for over 70 years. And we have 7 decades of experience developing and deploying new nuclear technologies. As I mentioned, 3 countries have already licensed our AP1000 technology. 12 AP1000 reactors are either completed or under construction at the moment. We have 18 more that are under contract or selected by global customers, including China, Poland, Ukraine, Bulgaria, and India. So I apologize, this is, the formatting has not really shown up very nicely here. But the SMR promise, I think we had a question, there's a lot of focus on SMRs at the moment. The S stands for small. It's just a size. It doesn't dictate what the technology is. Our AP1000 is a light water reactor technology based on what has already been proven. Westinghouse is actually pursuing a Gen 4 technology as well, and that's our lead-fast reactor technology, but that's going to be deployed much further into the future. The SMR, that's our AP300, is going to be deployed. I'll get to the deployment timeline in a moment here. Let me see if this is going to work.
As the world addresses the dual challenges of climate change and energy security, the need for proven solutions that deliver reliable, cost-effective, clean, and safe energy has never been greater. Introducing the Westinghouse AP300 Small Modular Reactor, the only SMR based on a deployed, operating, and advanced nuclear reactor. Leveraging the AP1000 reactor, the AP300 SMR utilizes identical technology, including design and licensing methodologies, major equipment and components, passive safety systems, proven fuel and supply chain. The AP300 SMR's simple modular design and compact safety footprint reduces construction, operating, and maintenance costs. The Westinghouse AP300 SMR, delivering on the promise of small modular reactors.
All right, there we go. So a little bit more about our SMR technology. It is based on over 20 operating years of successful AP1000 operations. More than 30 years of licensing have gone into licensing AP1000. And as you saw in the video, it takes less than a quarter of a soccer pitch for the safety-related equipment. And so that's important where land use is important. And I know in some communities here in Australia, that may not be such an issue, but a lot of the interest that we are getting is from communities that want to have it closer to population centers. And so having a smaller emergency planning zone is of interest to many of the communities that we're talking with, and it would take less than 0.4 acres for that safety-related footprint. As you saw in the video, it is based on proven technology. We're using identical technology as the AP1000 shown here on the right side. I want to talk a little bit about the fuel. So we are using, in an AP1000, we're using 14-foot fuel. It's called Robust Fuel Assembly, RFA-2, if you're a fuel geek. But we're going to be using 12-foot assemblies in the AP300 because it is going to be a little bit smaller footprint. We need to make some adjustments on the fuel. Making 12-foot fuel versus 14-foot fuel is not a big deal. We fabricate both of those lengths in our fuel fabrication facility, so that's not new. And we will be actually implementing Adopt Fuel, which is a doped fuel pellet for better fuel economics. It's been licensed in Europe and has been operating in plants for many years. This year it was licensed in the US, so we do intend to use that in addition to all of the other similarities you see there. We are passive safety pioneers. AP300 uses the identical proven AP1000 fully passive safety systems, really no changes there in terms of the technology. And this is kind of anonymized, but when you look at some of the competitors that we have out there in SMR space, we essentially check the box in terms of design, fuel licensing, fuel cycle, having a fully licensed technology, having the skills availability and the supply chain maturity. Let me talk about that for a moment. Through our AP1000 experiences, we have a lot of scars, if you will, going through that process. We have a lot of lessons learned, and so we're leveraging the fact that we have helped reinvigorate supply chains for new nuclear builds around the world and plan to use that reinvigorated supply chain for our AP300 deployments. And let me jump to the last row here on versatility. Of course, nuclear reactors can produce electricity, but we are also planning to use AP300, just like AP1000, for hydrogen generation, for district heating, for process heat, water desalination, And I think this last one often gets overlooked, but might be the most important: medical, life-saving radioisotope generation. And I saw the slides of how important ANSTO is to that industry, but additionally, our AP300 and AP1000 can provide those benefits as well. I see that Helen is inching up closer to me, so let me just quickly show the comparison for some footprints that are required. AP300 requires the smallest footprint per megawatt electric output, 4.7 meters squared per megawatt. I will jump to our roadmap because I heard and I kind of cringed, something is available now versus decades from now. Actually, I think realistically SMRs are in between. We have submitted our regulatory engagement plan with the US NRC and intend to, if everything goes according to plan, which of course it does in the nuclear industry, right? We will have our NRC certification by 2027. That means that we now would need 3 years for site-specific licensing and design, and having first nuclear concrete poured in about 2030. Nth of a kind construction timelines would be about 36 months. First of a kind might be longer. But this last line is really what I want to share with you and hope you take away. Nth of a kind target for overnight costs for this reactor, we're targeting at $3,400 US a kilowatt per kilowatt. And that's about $1 billion US per unit. This will not be the lowest figure or set of figures that you see. I guarantee that it'll be the most realistic. It's based on our AP1000 construction experiences in different countries, and now we are deploying in Poland as well, so this number will just become more and more robust. So thank you very much for your attention. Happy to answer questions if Helen allows.